I've learned a couple of things, during the last 40 years. In my opinion, you know, the university, organization or the department, the backbone of any of these departments are students. It has always been my sort of a feeling without having good students. Now, when you say without having good student, in my opinion, everybody is a good student. We need to find the strength in that student. Unfortunately, sometimes we look into a student who is very good in theoretical work, but not able to sort of do some implementation. But you must focus and push those students on their strengths. I had, during the last 40 years, outstanding students who could do a lot of theoretical work, but they can't really write a lot of coding work. It doesn't matter because people do have lots of strengths.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Iyengar, and proud second son of Dr. Iyengar and Mrs. Iyengar, and many of you guys are friends or will be friends over the next couple of days, and hopefully we'll have and develop lifelong friendships. I would like to welcome everyone to tonight's opening icebreaker, sponsored by Dr. Vinayak Hegde. Dr. Hegde is president and CTO at Sage Assurity Financial. He's a visionary entrepreneur and senior executive in software development and information technology for the financial industry.
Dr. Iyengar has always been the inspiration. So he's, in our culture, when we celebrate together for an auspicious function like what we are doing for next 2-3 days, we start with remembering and prayer for the teacher. So Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So it's basically a prayer respecting the teacher. Thank you. We are so grateful for everything you have done for all of us.
I appreciate the invitation to come here and start the conference off. This is, of course, a very important conference. So first thing I'd like to do is welcome everyone to the International Symposium on Sensor Network Systems and Security. It's a wonderful symposium and a wonderful topic. Of course, we're doing this in honor of Dr. Iyengar, who was a seminal advances in this area. He really created a lot of this field, and a lot of the technology that has now in development came out of a lot of the early work that he did. I know that most of the work that's going to be presented over the next 3 days here at the conference is going to trace back to either work that he did, but I know that a lot of the people here that are going to be presenting are also his students. And so this is a great time to celebrate his achievements. And I look forward to all of that.
Dr. Iyengar has been the inspiration of all of us and for so many long time. And we have all the students from the first 1970s, 80s, right? The first one. Dr. Shen is here somewhere. Yeah, Eugene, yeah. Your turn. And we have the newest student over here in this room, probably, I guess, from the international. Yeah. So welcome to this great celebration and for the whole success of the Dr. Iyengar and all his following students. And welcome to the Lakeland, actually, very hidden place between the big cities in Florida.
Congratulations, Dr. Iyengar, and so happy to see you, Mrs. Iyengar. Mrs. Iyengar is here?
Mrs. Iyengar.
Where? I see. The reason I mentioned Mrs. Iyengar is, during my PhD years in LSU, and Dr. Iyengar invited us to his home a couple of times for dinner, right? And until this day, every time we go to Indian restaurant with my wife, right? And my wife says, nowhere close to Dr. Iyengar's wife's dinner, right? So I just want to put out there, and Dr. Iyengar is really what is. Actually, Hedy has already said a lot about him, right? So I really nothing probably too much new. But he is a very perfectionist, right? Not only like he review your papers and then read between lines and for technical correctness, but he also correct your grammars, right? And then he circle your sentences and say this would be this and that, and of course if one thing I still can remember is like say I use a cannot, right? Can and space not, and he's a circle, so he moving together. That's how I say spell cannot correctly because of Dr. Iyengar, right? That's another thing. Okay. But this is like their flagship computer, right? Can you hold this? Can you hold this? And yeah. Yeah, because they use, my cousin is very inventive, right? And then he always use like the best materials, and he kind of say even try to exceed Apple, right? So construction is very solid, and this basically you connect to any screen for any size, any resolutions, and it's have this one has like a Windows 10 built in, right? And it's very very cool, right? Just like Dr. Iyengar, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I really felt an obligation at this point, at the earliest stages of this meeting, to extend my thanks to every single one of you, from Dr. Hegde to Dr. Sheng who have spoken, to all the speakers later on tonight as well as tomorrow for coming and celebrating with us my dad's 70th birthday. I've been at many of these symposia over the years, not for my dad, of course, but I still remember to this date, in the 1990s when I was an undergrad at MIT, when Hargobind Khurana was celebrating his 70th birthday, and there were speakers from all over the country, if not the world. And for someone of his stature, of course, there were multiple Nobel Prize winners speaking, including Francis Crick, as well as others. But one thing that I appreciated from that moment was how honored Dr. Khurana was that all of these people were here to or were there to applaud his merits.
I want to also recognize I think there are a number of high school students, there are a number of undergraduate students that have also traveled from FIU starting this afternoon who have attended and who's actually attending this event today and tomorrow. And so, as we sort of, pass some of the generational torches of excellence and teamwork and skills, I want to also recognize that we also have the future computer scientists and entrepreneurs who are also here in attendance. So a round of applause for them.
I was living in France. When I started looking for graduate school, we had a collaborator who was from MIT. I asked him how you should look for where you should go to graduate school, and his advice was to go look in the literature, find papers that excited you, and choose your major professor, and ignore the institution, and also think about somebody that you want to spend a lot of time with, because you're going to. I looked around. I actually found papers from Nagy and from Sandeep, and they impressed me. And then I had, I was accepted to LSU, Georgia Tech, and Hopkins, and decided to go work with Dr. Iyengar. And when I was there, I just did what he told me to do. And at the end of 3 years, I had my PhD and I'd written a book. And at the time, I didn't realize that that was unusual. I just thought, okay, that's what everybody does. It's only after the fact that I realized that not quite that normal. Well, actually, no, I have to admit, at one point, it was 2.5 years, I kind of, and he said that, I was sort of wondering if he didn't like me a whole lot, that he wanted to get rid of me so quickly. Since then, I've also had the pleasure of continuing to work with him on a number of projects. I've also noticed, you know, there's the paper with 7 degrees of separation. I'm convinced that when you know Dr. Iyengar, it shrinks to like about 2 or 3.
The topics were generations and continuation of legacies. So before we even begin, what exactly is a generation? You need offsprings. Before you talk about legacies, you need accomplishments. No one's going to question the fact that the Iyengar family has accomplished. The fact that the children are doing well, I would say, goes back to Rama. She was a wonderful mother. I was with Sheng and Nagi. We were amongst the first batch of students. The skill that very few have pointed out, but really attributes tremendously to, you guys have been calling him doctor, I'm going to call him Professor Iyengar, is the fact that he recruited well. He tapped the right people to come in. He allowed us to do ours and move us on. I'm not going to mention names, but his colleagues really don't even have more than 10, 15 PhDs. They would create impediments in our paths, in their students' path. Nagi would never say that. Nagi was there 4 years, 5 years gone. I was there 4 or 5 years, I was gone. Hegde and Sheng and so on and so forth. So the fact that he has churned out 60 tells you far more than can actually be said in 3 or 4 days. And he's still continuing to do that. Coincidentally, my friend's children are probably going to rotate through his lab or in his classroom because they're medical students in Dallas. So the legacy and the accomplishments continue. What he did is great. What his children are doing are wonderful. And obviously the grandchildren are going to do something even more stupendous.
My apologies. So I have a minute, so I'll keep it quick. So I did my master's and PhD under Dr. Iyengar's guidance. Well, let me talk about the fun part. So we used to hang out. I mean, Dr. Rajendra Srivastava covered most of it. All the rigorous drills that we went through. So I would focus on the fun times we had. So we would work late in the night, come early. I mean, then we had to find some excuse not to show up at 8 o'clock when Dr. Iyengar shows up. So we had some tricks up our sleeves, and like someone else would cover us. I would tell my another friend, okay, if he asks me, tell him that I'm in a class or something. So we would play all those things. He only knows now, okay? So it was fun anyway. So I leave it at that. So yes, I mean, to second what Dr. Srivastava said, he would push us hard to get us out with our degrees. Yes, that helped a lot. Thank you.
I am here because of this special occasion to honor Dr. Iyengar and really an amazing cadre of students, very honored and distinguished guests. Really, the stories that you've shared are very inspiring to me. I've spent my career in education, and I've worked directly with many students in different ways. And to see the impact that Dr. Iyengar has had on such a distinguished group is quite amazing. In 2012, Dr. Iyengar started seeing emails from me advertising hackathons that were happening in our community. We hadn't even started doing the hackathons on campus yet. And at one hackathon, which was sponsored by AT&T Wireless, he showed up at that unannounced. And to this day, I still hear students saying, wow, Dr. Iyengar went to this hackathon at the beginning when this wasn't very popular in Miami. And he was asking students questions. He was asking people questions. What is this all about? Why is this interesting? And it made a big impression on our students. And he has supported every hackathon that we have held without question. I would go to him and say, well, we need a little money for this or that. He says, just do it, do it. And so, Dr. Iyengar, I really want to thank you for your support and your vision to see that these students, and I think at this point there's easily been about 1,000 students who have been touched by this model and I think touched for the better and are inspired by it. So thank you for your support.
When I was first told that the symposium is going to happen in Lakeland, and I thought, why are we going to Lakeland? But then, once I found out that it was one of Dr. Iyengar's students who was here, I said, I understand. It is not going to be just this weekend that this Sensor Network Conference is going to happen, but this is the beginning of a long-term relationship and a long-term partnership between Florida Polytechnic and the Computer Science and Florida International University. So thank you, as you always do, bringing people together and starting new collaborations. You have done it again. So, and I think that Dr. Iyengar is the magician who is tricking everybody, you know, faculty and students to believe in their own dreams until they become reality. So under his leadership, the faculty and the students have flourished. He has supported so many in many ways, but he's also making sure that the world knows about their success. He nominates them for awards. IEEE fellows, AAAS fellows, best paper award here, best paper award there. There are people that he is supporting and he is bringing forth to the notice of all, bringing confidence and giving each one of the people confidence and recognizing all around him as he is shaping and molding and changing the whole field. That's what Professor Iyengar does. He meets deadlines, he's focused, and he achieves things, and at the same time, he's not afraid to, you know, reach out, take charge of the situation, and then bring all the rest of us along with him into that journey of exploration. And he does all of this with so much humility. You all know, you all are here. So many of you, you are here. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the long-term, 40 years, 30 years relationships that you have built, where you have been mentored, you have been kept together by him. So he's doing all of this with such humility. He's the only one in all of the other colleagues who refers to me all the time as Dean Jung. I'm an interim dean. I was a colleague, but no matter what, he would do that. And that tells you something about the largeness of the person, of what he himself is.
I'd like to say a few words about my relationship with Professor Iyengar. We have known each other for about 25 years now. Dr. Iyengar has been my role model. He has been such an amazing person. And in fact, I think the dean had talked about Dr. Iyengar, helping so many people. He wrote a reference from my IEEE fellow that was, I think, back in 2002. He's the one who nominated me for AAAS fellow. And one advice he gave me, which I didn't take, and I'm regretting it until this day, 2003, he said, Bhavani, this is your time for ACM fellow. Listen to Professor Iyengar's advice, because he knows when the right time is. So his achievements and his credentials are simply amazing, and he's been a role model and motivator. Just like the dean said, getting things done. I mean, that's his strength. It's a great honor for me to give this presentation to honor Professor Iyengar. And I would like to thank Professor Iyengar for all what he has done for me, as well as for the entire community. Thank you very much.
And my experience with Dr. Iyengar was at LSU, of course, where I graduated in 2000. And so that's my point of view. So you can go to the next animation. So I searched and searched to see if I could find a picture of Dr. Iyengar when I was a student there 17 years ago. So we've known each other about 20 years. Luckily, I was able to find a few. So let me show you the first one. This is, he's been there a long time, I guess is my point here. He was chair at LSU, I think we talked this morning, for about 20 years, right? And I was there about 5. I believe this is a shot of him going to work one day. And then he, you know, along with me and others, you can go to the next slide, he worked with a lot of students. And a lot of them had probably kind of like on the left, the guy on the left, he's not too happy, and the guy on the right. The guy with the white hair in the back is my favorite, though, I think. And then you may not know this, because I didn't know this until I found this photograph. Go to the next slide. He actually somehow managed during his spare time to play at LSU for a little while. I just found that photograph very fascinating. So, of course, the next slide, please. I do have a more touching story about Dr. Iyengar. It related to my experience at LSU. I actually was a terrible undergraduate, is the best way to describe it. I was more interested in drinking and women than I was in studying, and so I had a terrible GPA. I went to the University of Florida, party school, so that makes a lot of sense, up the street. And I applied to LSU program, and I was immediately summarily rejected. But then I found a loophole, and if you hit the space bar, it was called being a non-matriculating student, and that meant that you could take classes but not be degree seeking at the moment. And there was some other loophole that said if you took enough classes, I think it was 2 or 3, and achieved a grade of B or above, then you could get admitted to the program conditionally or on probation. And that is my story. I started as a non-matriculating student, and lo and behold, the only class I could take because I was working full-time was at night, taught by Professor Iyengar. It was algorithms. And that's where I learned algorithms. And if you hit the next slide, so my experience was Aho, Hopcroft, and Ullman, and Dr. Iyengar. And what a great start to a career. And really got me, you know, what's the word? I mean, I think I wasn't sure at the time. I mean, I was trying things. I had a terrible job. I didn't like it. I had a degree in mathematics that I did terribly in, and grad school was something I wanted to try. The problem with LSU, quotations, was that they only offered a PhD. I think they may have remedied that by now, but back then they only had a PhD program in computer science, not an MS. So I was stuck in the PhD program, so to speak. But it worked out pretty well for me, so I can't complain too much. And that's where I was. And Dr. Iyengar really had a passion for algorithms and would always say, talk about beautiful proofs and beautiful algorithms. I still remember that today. And when I was doing Seymour, I remember thinking that when I wrote the copy for the side-by-side demo that we do with Seymour. And so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
So I just wanted to congratulate Dr. Iyengar for his accomplishments and also inspiring a whole group of people, hundreds and hundreds of researchers. Definitely his students that he inspired, and more than that, there are several other people that are not his students that he went out of the way to help. And you probably will have a hard time finding someone else who is more selfless and more willing to help people. I was very fortunate to be his first PhD student, and I've known him for now about 33 years, 33 years of his, about 40 years of his career. So I've met him in 1984 and I, in IISc Bangalore. Then I joined him in 85. My time was very brief. I was only at LSU for 3 years. I wasn't there very long. But since then, he kept me as one of his continuing students, and he helped me more than one way. I also deeply appreciate his consideration in helping me long after I left LSU. So he nominated me to be corporate fellow and IEEE fellow. That was quite heartfelt because I was only in early 40s and most of the fellows are in 50s. And he called me and said, Nagi, you should apply. I said, no, I'm not going, I don't have any chance. He said, no, you should do it. So that is the positive attitude that he has. He helped several people throughout his professional career. Some of them who whom he just met, and he said, okay, we should nominate you for this, and you should do this, and so on. This kind of positivity is very hard to match. I don't know any other person who is more positive than Professor Iyengar. So thank you very much on my behalf, and also behalf of all the people that he helped.
The reason this some of my award, I really want to thank Dr. Iyengar. I remember when Dr. Iyengar just became our school director in the summer. He will become the director in fall, right, normally. In summer, he sent me an email encouraging me to apply for the ACM Distinguished Scientist Award. At that time, I like Dr. Rao. I thought too early for me. I never thought about it. But he encouraged me, then I did, and I got it. Over the time, I also noticed that Dr. Iyengar helped a lot of our colleagues at FIU Computer Science to receive many, many awards through his help and connections. Okay. Also, you may not know, in fact, most of you are the Dr. Iyengar's PhD student at Louisiana State. But you may not know, my advisor is a Professor Carl Sharp at Purdue. In fact, they are good friends. So when I was a PhD student at that time, I heard Dr. Iyengar's name, but I never met him. I don't know him. But I happened, Dr. Iyengar sent his second son to Purdue. So we were all together in the same lab, Dr. Carl Sharp lab. So that's the reason I know Dr. Iyengar. Then graduate. I still don't know Dr. Iyengar, but somehow, suddenly he became our school director. So there's really a small world. So I would say that I do have some connection with most of you, but I think we are at the same family, so same family tree. So that's the reason today I would like to discuss the so-called multimedia data management for disaster situation awareness. This kind of project involved some of my colleagues, Dr. Tao Li, Steve Lewis, and even Dr. Iyengar.
I'm a 42nd PhD student of Dr. Iyengar. And I guess that I'm a longest time I work with Dr. Iyengar at the same place and completed 6 years in LSU. And after I joined FIU and stayed 2.5 years, work together. And we did amazing job during that time. And currently that I just joined from this year and as assistant professor at Kent State University. And I'm trying to build up my lab. Exactly trying to follow Dr. Iyengar's track. It's like Discover Lab, I'm saying that is Advanced Teleoptics Lab, so ATR lab. And I'm trying to hook him to my lab. He's going to be my first PhD student as Dr. Lau is in Iyengar's. So I would like to introduce Mr. Irvin Cardenas.
So hi everyone. My name is Irvin, and I'd like to think I'm the first undergraduate student under Dr. Iyengar at FIU. And he's been a great advisor and mentor ever since. I was also, I guess, a founder, student researcher at Discovery Lab, which will kind of go over what we did back then. After graduating from FIU and graduating from Discovery Lab, I went off to work at Goldman Sachs on blockchain technology, and I also did started my own consulting firm, and I have started also a couple startups within actually Discovery Lab that I have gotten funded and exited successfully.
I want to take a few minutes to convey my thanks to Professor Iyengar. I've known Professor Iyengar for almost 18, 19 years, and I always tell that he is my great friend, great mentor, and many times when we talk, I say, Professor Iyengar, you and I are of the same age group, but where you are and where I am, so I talk with a giant in the field of computer science. So thank you for everything that you have done over the years.
First, I want to thank Ram for everything that I am right now. Okay, I had the opportunity to be his student, but I narrowly missed it. And I joined in University of Miami, and at the time, Professor Kashyap and Ram were just getting started with a content-based retrieval book. They invited us to write a chapter, and again, we missed it because of some of the prevailing priorities. And then I joined. I took a job that Nagi declined to take in Louisiana. Okay, and eventually our trajectories brought me to meet Ram at New Orleans at Tulane University for Balamurali Krishna concert. And so he invited me to come and meet him. And by then I already had won a LEQSF award on robotics, and we wanted to collaborate. Since then, I've always been inspired by him since 1986. Without Rama, I am not sure how far he would have gone. So let me first thank her first, okay? And Rama is first. Only after that, Ram. okay. Let's make this clear.
That's the truth.
yeah. Okay.
My name is Mark Finlayson. I'm an assistant professor at FIU. I've just begun my fourth year. I was hired by Ram in 2014 from MIT, as was mentioned, and I'm very fortunate and happy to be counted among Ram's many mentees, and his advice and guidance over the past 3 years has been instrumental in my success, and I'm looking forward to more advice from him in the future. And I probably would not have come to FIU if it hadn't been for Ram and his energy and vision, so I'm very grateful and thankful for that.
A pleasure being here, especially today, I guess, and I've been always in touch with Dr. Iyengar, or Professor Iyengar. And I teach networking this semester, so it's a great pleasure to have so many networking experts in the room. I was in constant touch with Professor Iyengar all through, and I did, and so on. And I was also relocating, so it was overwhelming. And I can believe being here. I can just imagine that I'm teaching networking and being with some of the experts in this whole building are all from networks, and having the seminar itself being networks and sensor networks. So it is a privilege to be in the teaching that, I guess, and that's what Professor Iyengar had probably envisioned before.
I still remember my conversation in Dr. Iyengar's office. He was different from all the other chairs I have met at other interviews because he was very confident in his decisions, and he's devoted to support the young researchers and educators. So gradually I realized in those past 3 years that is actually how he influenced and touched the people who come in his life. So I just feel so fortunate that I have Dr. Iyengar as my chair when I started my first academic job. Ever since my encounter with Dr. Iyengar, I just feel more appreciation and respect for his personality and leadership. I feel that Dr. Iyengar is really like paving the way for the young and junior faculty. I still remember once I went to Dr. Iyengar's office because I need a deep learning server for my lab. And I was a little bit nervous when I asked for this request, and Dr. Iyengar just said, go and buy it. I was really impressed, and that embarked our research, our lab's research on deep learning, which are related to today's talk. So Dr. Iyengar is more than a chair, an educator, and an excellent researcher for me. He cares for me like a father. I will always deeply appreciate Dr. Iyengar and remember all he have helped me and support me to becoming professionally more mature when I started to develop my career. Thank you so much, Dr. Iyengar. With that said,
Dr. Iyengar and I also met in, I think, 2013, 2014, and since then he has been a great guide and a mentor. We have been working on few ideas, and we have been also thinking of expanding those ideas in different ways. And I suppose I'm speaking to Dr. Iyengar's family. That's what I tell my students when you are doing PhD with me. You are more connected to me than anybody else, and that's what we are seeing here. So it's an honor to speak here.
Professor Iyengar for inviting me. I have been to some of his workshops earlier, and I met him not in US, not in India, first time in airline, while coming from Bangalore.
When was that?
It's probably 2005 or something, with traveling to US, same airlines. Of course, we have exchanged some emails before. And since I working in sensor networks from 2001, of course, I read papers and also published 2 papers in the Journal of Distributed Sensor Networks in 2006 and 2007 with Richard Brooks and you as the editor-in-chief. And so thanks a lot again for inviting me. So the talk which I have prepared for this is related to IoT, analytics, Bhavani was talking in the morning, and also security and building the overlays. And this is a very hot topic. I was in ICDCS this year in Atlanta, and NSF program manager was talking about this. And then what happened, the best paper award was given in this area. That was not on wireless, they were building overlays on top of the internet, that means on the IP protocols. And if you need quality of service, you cannot change protocols, it will never happen. So they came up with this overlay ideas, and that was from John Hopkins.
I want to take a point of personal privilege here and describe a little bit about my experience with Dr. Iyengar before I get along with my talk. So I graduated from LSU with a PhD in computer science in 2002, and I joined LSU in 1998. And I met Dr. Iyengar like every diligent, good graduate student should do on day one. Jet lagged, sort of teary eyes. I saw him with a lot of nervousness. I heard so much about him, I didn't know what to expect. And all I got in return was just pleasure and encouragement and inspiration. And that inspiration drove me through the entire 3 to 4 years that I spent with him. I took several trips with him. I still fondly recall those road trips I took with him. The trip to Berkeley we made together. And it's not just the trips, it's just the fact that so much wisdom that he imparted on the way. Small little things, on how to interact with people, how to learn from them, how to inspire them, how to walk with them. He's a great researcher, he's an extraordinary teacher. But most importantly, at least in my mind, he's a great leader. A leader who leads from behind, who doesn't always ask for credit, who leads from behind by watching people do what they do best and inspiring them to do more. And that made a whole lot of difference in me. So when I took up my first administrative position a couple of years back as the director for our computer science electrical engineering programs, I called him. I said, Dr. Iyengar, I need your words of wisdom, because I remember he used to share some of the frustrations and excitements of being a department head, so I wanted to learn from him. And the things that he told me, which I'm not going to repeat here because he told me some terms which are very direct, very pointed, and it really served me well over years. So thank you so much, Dr. Iyengar, for doing what you do.
I'm very honored to attend this celebration symposium in honor of Dr. Iyengar. And before I start my presentation, I just want to say something about my story with Dr. Iyengar as his student. So in 2000, I came to LSU as a master's student in biochemistry. And because my bachelor degree was in biomedical engineering, so they are kind of related. And also that's the first financial aid I received. And so after 2 semesters of wet bench laboratory, so I realized that actually my true interest is in computer science. So I start to take some CS courses and then apply for the master program of the computer science at LSU. So luckily I was admitted, and Dr. Iyengar at that time was generous enough to offer me the financial aid for this study. So from that time, in the beginning, I start to take a lot of CS courses, core courses, because my background was not in the computer science, in addition to conducting research projects on several Dr. Iyengar's federal funded projects. So that was a pretty tough time for me, because I had to learn a lot of things from Dr. Iyengar, so he provided me a lot of guidance and help how to conduct research, how to learn the algorithm, and so on.
Thank you, Dr. Iyengar, for
inviting me. One of my friends, he introduced me to Dr. Iyengar about 15 years ago. And since then, he has shaped my academic career. I don't know what he found in me. I'm just an ordinary person, just like 1 million academic people. But since then, he has done so much. This curator professor, it is because of him. I am editor-in-chief of a journal because of him. I can go on, and probably I will finish all the presentation time in listing his help to me, but we can take that on offline. But anyway, thank you very much. So, I'm going to talk about dynamic firewall policy in a private cloud. This is NSF-funded work, and Mahesh Nath is a PhD student, my PhD student, who is going to be graduate in October. So, how do we protect cloud from hackers' package which are coming from outside?
I also want to thank Dr. Iyengar for having us here today. He's been very instrumental as far as getting our society to grow and getting the student community on campus to be active and pursue computer science and IT degrees. So thank you for that.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Iyengar for having me in this apprenticeship program. It was a great experience. I really loved it and I learned a lot. So I worked on contract theory and wireless sensor networks for solving privacy problems.
Yeah, tell about your background, which high school? Yeah.
Oh, I'm in Coral Reef High School in the Business Academy, and I'm a senior. I'm about to graduate. As we all know, sensors are used in many ways, mostly to acquire data. And I was looking at in this case, we're looking at stores who they use sensors to track where customers go by connecting to their phone's Wi-Fi to see where the customer goes, where he looks, where he spends his time on, to see which area in the store they would like to put more focus on. This brings a problem of privacy because the sensors are, in turn, they're connecting to the phone's Wi-Fi, and a lot of people they're not accepting of that.
My name is Hana Chandra. I'm currently a high school senior at American Heritage in South Florida. And this summer, I got an amazing opportunity to work with Colonel Miller and Dr. Pisano for the summer during the 8th STAP program. And I'd like to thank Dr. Iyengar for giving me such a great opportunity, because this summer was really one of the most amazing summers of my whole life. So I actually love computer science. I come from a very computer science family. Both my parents are in computer science, so you could say it's in my genetics. So one of my favorite things about computer science is how you can apply it to specific situations and how it really becomes a tool where you can find things about whatever subject you want that you could never see before. So that's the aspect that I really love about computer science.
I need to thank, of course, Sanjeev. Stand up, please. Okay. For those of you who were presenting, you know that he was Johnny on the spot and making sure that the presentations were up there. Tejas, where did he disappear to? You saw them working here today and yesterday and the day before. Great work, but the behind-the-scenes things that these guys did to really kick this off, make things work, help Ariana and I in coordinating all of the details, and in the meantime, continuing to be graduate students under Dr. Iyengar, which can be a challenge at times, as we know. So, outstanding work. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay. And then, of course, finally, just one more round of applause, because I know Dr. Iyengar mentions me in these things. After this event, I learned something. I am and will always be the assistant to my partner in crime, Ariana, who really pulled this out and put this thing together. So please, thank you very much.
It has been a real monumental experience for me working with so many students, number one. Then I've learned a lot. I tell you, in 1977, I visited, Stanford University. I'd heard a lot about Stanford University, and then I met a professor, Professor Floyd, and a very, very distinguished professor who did a lot of work on programming languages. So, and I was very busy, and then he was telling me, then I said, I'm coming from LSU, and so on and so forth. And then I said, you've been instrumental in producing so many good students. What is the secret? Of course, he said, well, I am at Stanford. We have always attracted the best students. And then one thing which makes me really very intricate at this point, I said, Professor Floyd, you have written so many good papers. You know what he said? Professor Iyengar, I've learned more from students than what they've learned from me. As a man of that caliber who could say that. So in a similar tone, there are a lot of my students who did such outstanding work, and I've learned a lot from them, from every student. I also had really a lot of good collaborators from all over the world, and I've again learned a lot from them, working with them, and that has been again a positive experience. I want to thank you, and let's give a big hand for all of the students who played a really significant role.